What's up, everybody? I'm sitting in the 2025 Volkswagen Jetta GLI Autobahn. For 2025, VW has refreshed, given it a little facelift, Miss Jetta, and now you get a new front end and a new back end, some slight little tweaks to the interior. The big news is that pricing hasn't really changed much at all from the 2024 model, which usually prices increase pretty drastically when they do a refresh or something, but things stayed pretty much the same. Maybe some trims got a little bit more expensive, but as spec'd, my press car costs $35,045. However, at base GLIs start at $32,715. You can only get the GLI in Autobahn trim. You get the 228 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. This has the 6-speed manual transmission. You can also get a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. The dual clutch adds about a little under 100 pounds to the curb weight. So as we're sitting here in this manual car, it weighs 3,241 pounds. Gets great gas mileage on the highway, I have to say. You get up to 36 according to the EPA, but it's super easy to achieve that on the highway. Around town, it's a little harder because you're shifting and having fun, but on the freeway, you do great. So this thing competes with stuff like the Elantra Turbo and Civic Si, Subaru WRX. At $35,000, this does give some nice options, but I do have to say that the Elantra N is actually cheaper and more powerful and more serious and offers the manual. Civic Si is on a much newer platform, offers a manual, is significantly cheaper. It's around closer to the $31,000 mark, including destination, where this is up at $35,000. Elantra N is only $33,000, $34,000, and you're getting 276 horsepower with that, and a much more serious car. WRXs get a little more expensive, but I don't really know who is gonna buy this other than VW fanboys, because it's the last VW with the manual. But that is to say, it's a fun car. I have enjoyed driving it a lot, and let's give it... I had the parking brake on. Let's give it the beans. So, this is still front-wheel drive, as many of the spicy little VWs are, but it has a electronic limited slip differential up front, so it's brake-based. It's not fully mechanical, but it still does the trick. I don't necessarily find too much issue with it, given that it's a lot of power going to the front wheels, especially all that torque, 258 pound-feet of torque to the front wheels. I'm in sport mode right now, and you can hear the fake engine noise that gets pumped in here. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Thankfully, there are hard buttons down here to change modes, and just switched out of it, so maybe you'll hear a difference. If you turn off your vehicle in sport mode, the next time you start it, it's still gonna be in sport, which I really like. I wish that more cars had that feature where it's like stays in the mode you put it in, even after you turn it off. But I enjoy that about this. It is relatively spacious up front, aside from headroom. The seating position is weirdly high. It doesn't feel like you're low in the car. You don't really feel like you're sitting low compared to traffic either. I feel like VW has tried to give it a little bit of a higher seating position in order to steal a little bit from the crossover buyers. But personally, I think the seat needs to go down a lot more. It would make this car feel a little bit more engaging, a little more buttoned down. It does get a 0.6 of an inch lower suspension than the regular Jetta SEL or whatever, but you don't really notice it. It still rolls a bit through the turns, but it's not terrible. The suspension is otherwise relatively composed. GLI gets you an independent multi-link rear suspension, whereas the regular Jetta has a torsion beam, so you get a little bit more advancement from the suspension technology. And I found that it's relatively palpable. You can tell that there's a little bit more composure in here than in the base Jetta that I drove not long ago. It's This is a lot more consistent with its responses through bumpy turns and such, but that's not to say that it's particularly buttoned down. It's got all that power going to the front wheels, so when you are accelerating on broken pavement or, you know, an undulating road with little imperfections on it, the car really scrabbles for grip and kind of struggles to get the power down. And while it's doing that, it's yanking the wheel around in your hands. So it feels a little unrefined in that sense, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. The suspension is very comfortable in comfort mode, and then you put it into sport and it firms up a bit. Seems to just increase the rebound rates. It's a little uncomfy on the freeway. You find yourself bouncing around a little bit, but you know, on canyon roads and stuff, it's fine in sport mode. My biggest gripe with the day-to-day with this vehicle is the tire noise. There's a really annoying amount of tire noise that comes into the vehicle when you're at speed on the road. If you are on a road that's concrete or broken pavement, you know, with tar strips and stuff, it is going to be audible. Everything is going to be heard. And the stereo in here is a Beats audio system, but it's not great in my opinion. It sounds a little hollow and tinny, but that is to say that you can't really drown out the road noise with a high quality stereo system, because there isn't one. But it's a relatively spacious interior in here. You get a solidly sized trunk. Seems big enough to handle life. I'm more of a hatchback person than a sedan person, but the fact that this offers a 6-speed manual is really enjoyable and relatively rare for the class, given that the only alternatives that offer it are the Civic Si, Subaru WRX, and Elantra. And I don't think they do an Elantra turbo with the 1.6 liter turbo with manual, but this also offers the DSG if that's more your persuasion. The Jetta GLI is now only offered in Autobahn trim, which is the top trim, so you get goodies like heated and cooled front seats, dual zone climate control up here. The rear seats are also heated. Jetta comes standard with the IQ drive from VW, which is like their level 2 autonomous system that has lane centering and everything. I have to say, it's really strange for me to use automatic cruise and like lane keep and stuff in a vehicle with a manual transmission. Such a weird kind of melding of generations of technology, but it works great. You know, you can still shift while automatic cruise is active. You can, even if you like leave it in neutral, the car will still brake for you. It's a great system in my opinion. It definitely makes driving easier. The manual itself though is really light. You know, shifting through the gears is very easy. Clutch is light, the shifter action is light and positive, but it's not super mechanical feeling by any means. But it's still better for driver engagement than an automatic. Super friendly to drive if you're new to driving a manual. You know, you get hill hold assist with the electronic parking brake, so if you're, you know, taking off from a dig on a hill, you're not going to roll backwards. I haven't found rev matching. I'm assuming there's not rev matching in here, which I don't really mind, because it's, you know, it's a performance car. You're going to rev match on your own if you feel so inclined, but I would appreciate the option at least. I don't know if I'm going to get ousted by the car community for this, but I don't know how to heel toe shift. I don't know if it's an issue with my giant feet or what, but I'm not a heel tower. But I can still rev match relatively well with this transmission. It seems fine. There's not a ton of headroom up front. My head is brushing the ceiling and the seat is as low as it goes. There's not a ton of adjustment in the seat, but again, this is a compact car. So competing with things like Civic and Elantra, you don't necessarily expect the finest of features to be offered in here. That said, materials quality, everything you touch is pretty solid. Top of the door is up front, squishy. The dashboard is very squishy, rubberized. The armrest here has a lot of padding, and the infotainment system functions relatively well as you need it. New for 2025, you get standard wired and wireless Apple CarPlay. You also get a wireless charger down here that has increased charging rates over the 2024 model. You only get USB-C ports in here, and the output of these ports has also been increased over the 2024 model, so you'll get quicker charging for all your devices. It can charge a tablet or a laptop if that's something that you and your kids want. The steering is fine. It does the trick. It's direct, it's quick, it's fun, but it doesn't offer a ton of feel. I believe Autobahn trim comes standard with sunroof. It's not really a massive one, but it works. It doesn't eat into rear headroom either. It opens out of the car, so that's a positive. Back seat is pretty spacious. I don't think I would be able to fit behind myself comfortably, but that's very rare to find in any size car, let alone this one. But it's very spacious in here. You don't feel like you're in a teeny little tin can. It feels solid. It feels significant. It feels playful. There's so much power from this engine. I didn't realize this, but this has like 36 PSI of turbo boost maximum, which is really high from what I understand. So this engine has a lot of get up and go when you get it in the right spot. Down low in the RPMs, if you're coming out of a lower speed corner, second gear, you're below 3,000 RPM, you're gonna experience some turbo lag for sure. But it's somewhat endearing almost, in the sense where you find yourself like rooting for the car and willing it along, like, come on, give me the boost, let's go. But that is to say that it's a little bit of that old school experience where you still have to work, you have to find the right gear, you're involved in the process here. So it's definitely, you can tell it's not the newest platform. It comes on all-season tires too, which really let it down from my perspective. I looked at the configurator and I didn't see an option to add summer tires or performance tires, but these all-seasons that it's on, I think, are a bit of a culprit for why it kind of pushes through turns a lot, and you know, like, mid-corner adjustments aren't necessarily met with the sharpest of responses from the front end. I really don't think that's a chassis issue. I think it's definitely a tire issue, but that should be offered on a performance vehicle, you'd think, but I don't know, maybe I'm tripping. I've really enjoyed having this. It's very easy to drive. It's very friendly to get along with. It's fun when you need it to be. Love having that mid-range torque available to just kind of get you through traffic if you're trying to, you know, squirt through tight spots or whatever, driving like an I have to say, it does encourage you to drive a bit like an maybe that's just me, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's great that VW decided against increasing the price very much. The manual and automatic GLIs are the same price. There's no money savings or cost savings when you get into the manual. You do, however, get 1 mpg better combined. This gets 30 mpg combined, whereas the DSG gets 29. So if you need another reason to get the manual, you get better gas mileage. Aside from the apparent road noise, the ever-present kind of tire roar in this car, it's great on the day-to-day. You know, it does everything well. You can tell the body structure is very stiff. It doesn't jiggle or wiggle over bumps, broken pavement, garbage city streets, or anything. It remains very composed and comfortable and doesn't feel, like I said, it doesn't feel like a tin can at all. But for $35K, it better not. Let me see what I can do here. Alright. It always spins up the wheels in first gear. As soon as you get on the boost, it just starts scrambling. You definitely should expect wheel spin if you're really stomping on the accelerator, especially in first gear. It just seems to overwhelm the front a little bit and kind of encourages you to short shift into second, but it works. Brakes are super solid. I really have found them to be totally capable, put up with a lot of abuse without getting weird. I just wish that this was on better tires. It's definitely more lively and more composed than the regular Jetta. You get a pretty massive benefit to going with GLI as far as power and refinement goes with the suspension. I also found some really nasty kind of boomy reverberations in the standard Jetta that I don't notice here. So it must have something to do with that rear suspension design. So GLI does not have that boominess of the standard Jetta. It doesn't bother my eardrums like the standard Jetta does. Good car. If you can find a deal on one, I say do it. Thanks for watching. Oh no, there was a dead squirrel on the side of the road. Sad.